Welcome to the ultimate guide to mastering Stave 1 of A Christmas Carol. Today, we're going to transition you from basic plot comprehension straight into top-grade exam strategy. If you want to know exactly how to decode Charles Dickens and absolutely impress your examiners, you are in the exact right place. Here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to cover the big picture, Stave 1, themes and language, tackling the exam question, crafting a top-grade answer, and finally, a quick wrap-up. So, are you ready to master Stave 1? We're going to build your foundational knowledge from the ground up and then give you the exact formula to crush that exam. Let's dive right in. Section 1, the big picture. We're looking at social commentary and allegory. Okay, before we zoom into the very first chapter, we really have to understand the macro view of the whole novella. The entire text functions as an allegory. This basically means it's a narrative where characters and events represent much broader societal themes. This isn't just some spooky ghost story to tell around the fire. It's a profound tale of moral redemption, where Ebenezer Scrooge literally represents the sheer, unadulterated greed of the upper classes. But ultimately, it shows us that transformation is always possible, no matter how terribly lost someone might seem. And this brilliantly illustrates the novella's other main purpose, acting as a piercing social commentary. Dickens is actively using his writing to critique societal issues. Specifically, he's targeting the cruelties of the Victorian poor laws and the harsh treatment of the underclass. Keep this in the back of your mind, because every single quote we analyze today ties right back to this powerful commentary. Section 2, Stave 1, Marley's Ghost. Let's plot out those narrative beats. Let's map out Scrooge's interactions on this freezing, foggy Christmas Eve. We start at 3 p.m. in his freezing counting house with his overworked, completely underpaid clerk, Bod Cratchit. Moving into the late afternoon, we see the stark contrast of his nephew Fred's joyful visit, which is quickly followed by Scrooge's cruel dismissal of the charity collectors. Then comes his dark, dreary journey home, and the whole thing culminates at midnight with that terrifying supernatural climax, the arrival of the ghost of his dead partner Jacob Marley, weighed down by the chains of his own greed. I mean, you can imagine the sheer panic of seeing a ghost dragging cash boxes through your bedroom door. But it all kicks off with this famous assertion. Marley was dead to begin with. Now, why start here? Well, it immediately establishes Scrooge's fundamental aloneness. Marley was literally his only friend, and Dickens makes absolutely sure we know Marley is dead. It sets the stage so that the supernatural shock to come hits us, and Scrooge, that much harder. Section 3, Themes and Language. Time for a deep analysis. Now, the crucial point for your exam isn't just knowing what happens, but understanding exactly how Dickens writes. Notice how Dickens uses similes here to establish Scrooge's chosen, impenetrable isolation. Hard and sharp as flint implies he's unyielding and cold, totally incapable of producing any generous fire or warmth for others. And then, solitary as an oyster shows this tough, closed-off exterior. He has locked himself away from humanity entirely. Honestly, if misery were an Olympic sport, Scrooge has taken home the gold. Look at this masterful quote. The relentless succession of verbs paints a highly vivid, almost superlative caricature of a miser. Just read those words aloud with me in your head. Squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching. It physically feels suffocating, doesn't it? Those harsh consonants and aggressive action verbs structurally emphasize Scrooge's suffocating grip on his wealth and his total lack of humanity. Dickens heavily relies on imagery that compares Scrooge to cold, unfeeling objects. Why? Well, because it establishes a baseline at the absolute bottom of human morality. It makes his eventual transformation by Stave 5 all the more powerful. We literally have to see him at his absolute worst to believe his best. Section 4, Tackling the Exam Question. Let's get into some practical application. Let's pivot from our analysis to an actual exam scenario you might face. The prompt asks, starting with the extract where Fred visits Scrooge, how does Dickens present the theme of charity and Christmas spirit? So this is basically asking us to evaluate the clash of ideologies during Fred's visit, and how that specific moment ties into the whole novella. When looking at this extract, we absolutely must highlight how Fred embodies warmth and generosity as a direct foil to Scrooge's bitterness. Notice the contrast here. You want to highlight Fred's physical warmth, his eyes sparkling, his breath smoking in the cold, against Scrooge's freezing, icy environment. Fred sees Christmas as a charitable, forgiving time, right? Meanwhile, Scrooge weaponizes his wealth, basically asking Fred what right he has to be merry when he's poor. The stark contrast in their dialogue perfectly frames this theme. Section 5, Crafting a Top-Grade Answer. Here is your exam strategy.
To truly master this, we're going to break down how to answer using a good, better, best framework. There's a really clear difference between just retelling the story and actively analyzing the text's mechanics. A low grade just tells me the plot. A middle grade spots the language. But a high grade? A high grade provides perceptive analysis that links directly back to the historical context at the time. When examiners mark your papers, they are desperately looking for that deeper layer of context.
Let's look at that first jump. A basic, low-grade response just tells us what happens. Scrooge hates Christmas and yells at Fred. Okay, fine. But a middle-grade response identifies the specific language techniques Dickens uses to show it. It points out that Fred is a literary foil, analyzing his cheerful voice right up against Scrooge's miserable bah humbug. It's good, for sure, but we can do even better. Now, to hit that top tier, your perceptive analysis must leap off the page and connect directly back to the Victorian social context. You've got to connect Fred's generous attitude to the broader theme of social responsibility. And, crucially, link Scrooge's cruel dialogue to the harsh realities of Victorian workhouses and the poor laws. That historical tie-in is the absolute secret ingredient for top marks. And this brilliantly illustrates the high-grade approach. Use a powerful quote like, "If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population." You use this to discuss how Scrooge is basically voicing the exact ignorance and cruelty of the wealthy upper class regarding those poor laws. That is exactly how you show the examiner you deeply understand Dickens' true allegorical purpose. Section 6, Outro. Let's do a final recap.
Let's wrap up everything we've learned today into a final, actionable summary. Remember these 4 vital steps for your exam. Grasp the core allegory of moral redemption, analyze the vivid, harsh language of Scrooge's isolation, contrast him with warm character foils like his nephew Fred, and always anchor your argument in the Victorian social context.
The next time you open A Christmas Carol, ask yourself, are you ready to look past the plot and uncover the true spirits of Dickens' message? You now have the tools, the historical context, and the strategy. Best of luck on your exams, and happy analyzing.